send your children to public schools. You send them to private schools. So I was wondering why you think it's fair to be cutting school funding to public schools.
What's her name? What's her name, guys? Real quick, because the governor's talking. What is it? Gail. Talk to Gail.
Hey, Gail, you know what? First off, it's none of your business. I don't ask you where you send your kids to school. Don't bother me about where I send mine. I, as governor, am responsible for every child in this state, not just my own. And the decisions that I make are to try to improve the educational opportunities of every child in this state. So with all due respect, Gail, it's none of your business.
Michelle Ree's back with us.
You got to be polite to our audience members.
Reverend Al, Governor.
This is Jersey.
Come on.
Governor, we're going to try this again.
These are my people. This is Jersey. I know how to handle it.
All right. Be nice, Chris.
You know, I noticed, though, when you said governor, you got a big applause line there. But I did notice a few people grimacing when you said these are my people. But go ahead. Let's open up with some questions.
Questions from the audience.
We're not going for 100%, Joe.
We're starting here. I'm nervous. Chris, be nice. Your name? Your
Chris.
question.
My name is also Chris.
Oh, good.
Hi.
Governor, big fan. I have a question for you. My mom is a teacher right up the road in Hasbrouck Heights, right off 17, and she's a drama teacher and communications teacher. And I have a question about merit pay. Now, she is in a subject where there's no standardized testing. So how do you grade somebody like her where there's no standardized testing, there's no criteria for that? And in her school, over 75% of the kids in the school, it's a small school, but they signed up for her electives classes. They're full. There's no more room.
All right.
Somebody like that, how do you?
So what do you do, Governor?
Here's the way you deal with that. Remember that in our teacher evaluation plan that we put forward, only 35% of the way teacher is judged is going to be based on test scores. The other 65% are based on subjective measures, like how the kids grade out in her classes, peer review by both teachers and administrators who come in and watch her teach and evaluate her. So this whole idea that, folks are thinking that we're going to just grade people on standardized tests, grade teachers on standardized tests, it's 35% of the overall evaluation. It should be a part of it, but it shouldn't be the dominant part of it, because teaching is still both an art and a science, and we have to respect both sides of that. So your mom, who's a drama and communications teacher, the bulk, because she doesn't have a testing element to it, then she's going to be judged by her peers in the school, other teachers and administrators, and by how children respond grade-wise in her class.
All right, Willie Guys, take it.
All right, Governor Christie, a question for you from Samantha. Stand up for me, Samantha. She's a sophomore here at Fort Lee High School.
Does the student's opinion matter regarding education and teachers, because we're the ones that experience it firsthand?
Well, listen, I think your opinion matters. And now, if you're asking me, is it going to matter in terms of the way your teachers get paid or in their evaluation? No, it's not. But it matters because you're going to be giving voice to your parents, to the other folks who are going to be in the school, your principals and others, in terms of whether you like what's going on in the class, whether you think it's valuable or not. And so you're going to have a role to play, but not a formal role, at least in my process, in terms of filling out evaluations on teachers and having them count towards their pay. But you are going to have a role, and always will have a role, in how you perform in the class, how you respond to the teacher, and how you let the adults in your life, your parents and the people at school, know about how you think you're being taught. That's going to be a very important role for you to be vocal about, and you should be vocal about it.
All right, the next question for our panel right here. Your name?
I'm Bob Bowden. I run an education reform news service called choicemedia.tv. For Michelle Rhee, a lot of teacher evaluation plans have been passing around the country, including New Jersey, in just the last couple of weeks. The states of Washington, Colorado, New York, the legislatures have enacted new evaluation laws. The question is, how do we know this will ultimately lead to any dismissals? You could have new plans where data is collected, where teachers are rated according to certain categories. All of this kind of becomes a process, and yet if the culture is still one of essentially a collectivist sense of protecting each other, because we're all in this together in a monopoly system, how does that lead to actual dismissals?
Governor?
Michelle.
Okay. So I think this is an incredibly important question, and we have to look at both sides of the spectrum. So first of all, is the evaluation system differentiating so that our top performers are being recognized and rewarded for the work that they're doing, and that we're also identifying ineffective teachers and what happens with them? I've been in so many discussions across this country over the last few months with legislators who are saying, well, so if someone is evaluated as ineffective, what should we do with them? And there are all these conversations about, well, we should give them 3 years or 4 years to improve their practice. And I always say, wait a second. You know, when I ran the D.C. school system, what I said was, if we knowingly put an ineffective teacher in a classroom again the following year, if I'm going to make that policy decision as a superintendent, then I have to be willing to or comfortable knowing that one of my kids, who I send to the public schools, might actually get that teacher that year. There's no way I would ever do that as a parent. I would never let my kid go into a classroom of an ineffective teacher. And so if I'm not willing to make that decision for my own child, then I'm not willing to make it for any other parent anywhere in this district. I think that's the way we have to look at these things.
Willie Geist has a question out front.
Michelle, another question for you. Jeff from Clifton, New Jersey.
Yes. In New Jersey, the teachers' unions collect well over $100 million. And unfortunately, a significant amount of that goes to disparage Governor Christie. Is there a way that we can institute a program that would allow the teachers to decide who their money goes to support?
Yeah, you know, I talk to a lot of teachers every day who don't like the idea that so much of their dollars, their union dues, go towards these political activities, and it's much more money than people across this country understand. Between the two national teachers unions a year, about $500 million is spent on political activities. Think about what that could do for teachers in the classroom in terms of buying them supplies and raising their pay, et cetera, providing them with better professional development. So I think that if the union focused less on how are we going to disparage people like Christie who are actually trying to unlock a very, very difficult situation, and instead focus on how can we bring more resources to our teachers and to the classrooms, I think we'd be much better off.
And Willie, think about this. $731 a year is collected from every teacher in New Jersey in dues. And we have 120,000 or so public school teachers, plus another 40,000 public school employees who pay. Over $100 million a year every year. Not a nickel from the union goes to teacher salary, teacher pension, or teacher benefits. That all has to be paid by the taxpayer. And they spend all that money on whatever they feel like spending on. Sometimes it's attacking folks like me and other activities they want. Pay their executive director $350,000 a year. This is stuff that teachers, hardworking teachers, should not have to pay for. But yet in New Jersey, we have mandatory laws passed by the legislature, who's been in the pocket of this union for decades, that say, how about this? If you don't want to be in the union, you don't have to be. But if you opt out, you pay 85% of the dues to be out. You know, for people in my generation, that's like the Hotel California. You could check out anytime you like, but you can never leave. And that's what it's like to be in a union in this state.
Yes. So 15-year-old Adrian, who constantly plays with her hair like my daughter, stop it, Amelia, has a question for the governor.
Hi, Christie. It's a pleasure to meet you and all. Recently, you passed an anti-bullying law, which I really am appreciative for, because bullying should not be allowed in the state of New Jersey, so I really thank you for that. However, one of the main reasons why kids even do get bullied in school is whether or not they're homosexual. And recently, there has been a bill to allow gay rights in the state of New Jersey. Can you tell me why what was your decision, if your worst decision, to veto the bill? Because I've heard that you had vetoed the bill.
I did veto a bill on gay marriage, not on gay rights, and gay rights are protected aggressively in New Jersey. But listen, this is something that I feel strongly about. I think marriage is between one man and one woman. But I also know there's people who have very different opinions about that in our state. So what I've said to folks is, after vetoing the bill, let's put it on the ballot. If a majority of people in New Jersey want to have same-sex marriage, then vote for it and I'll be governed by it. But I don't think that's a decision that should be made by 121 people in Trenton alone. It's a major change in the way we've governed our society, and I'm willing to be governed, even though I feel one way about it, I'm willing to be governed by the will of the people of New Jersey. So if the legislature is willing to put it on the ballot for this fall presidential election, when we have the most people voting that we will in any 4-year cycle, whatever the result is, I'll be governed by it.
Adrian, good question.
Al, you've been fighting on it for education reform over the past several years. You and Newt Gingrich worked with the president, worked with some Republicans, some Democrats to push forward. What have you learned over the past 2 or 3 years that has really enlightened you on what we need to do moving forward?
Well, I think that the one thing I've learned is that this is the one issue that Americans can come together. Newt Gingrich and I didn't agree on the day of the week we were on the road. Right. But we said that the system needs to work for the kids. I don't agree with Governor Christie on a lot. I mean, we won't even agree. We were here this morning. Right. I don't agree with him on gay marriage. I don't agree with him on unions. But we both agree that at the end of the day, if the students are not learning more, then it doesn't work. So he gave credit today to the president. We'll argue outside, but I think in here, we've got to create a climate where the children, the students see that leaders in society can come together on something, and that's the future of the country with education.
That is great news.
Christie did good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Governor. We appreciate it. We appreciate it.